Here's a guy who thinks I'm not actually an atheist.
I know what you probably tell yourself. You're a man of science. You deal in cold, hard facts. You have outgrown all those religious people of the past who have those stupid rituals, superstitions, and sky daddies.
That's not what I tell myself. I don't believe in that stuff because I can't make any sense of it, not because I have some smug superiority that makes me view it with contempt.
But you're lying to yourself.
I suppose I would be if I actually told myself the things you've strawmanned atheists as telling themselves, but I don't actually believe any of that.
Look, don't blame me, blame Nietzsche.
Did Nietzsche also make strawman arguments about atheists?
Arguably the most famous atheist in all of history, Nietzsche, the one who said famously that God is dead, he would laugh at your so-called skepticism. He wouldn't call you a skeptic, he would call you an unconscious Christian, a believer who's in denial. Nietzsche argued that even the most godless of modern men are still warming their hands by a fire lit thousands of years ago. You claim the fire doesn't exist, yet you rely on its heat every single day.
What heat does Christianity give off that didn't exist prior to its invention as a religion?
Now, we're going to look at your atheistic worldview, your science, your morality, your humanism.
I'm not a humanist. I don't believe that being human automatically gives you inherent value, nor do I think it's inherently appropriate to prioritize humans over non-humans. A necessary, although not sufficient, condition for my conscience to care about something's well-being is whether it has the capacity to suffer. Many humans, like embryos for example, don't have this, and many non-humans do seem to have this.
We're going to see it for what it really is, an intellectual ghost story. Here's the uncomfortable truth. You haven't actually escaped religion. You've just renamed it. Let's start with your most prized possession, science and objective truth.
I'm not convinced I do possess objective truth, and my affection for science is entirely conditional. The moment it stops helping me get what I want out of my environment and my experiences, I will lose interest in it.
Now, you believe that truth is better than a lie?
No, I don't. I only prefer truths over lies insofar as they help me get what I want from the world and from my experiences. Having a reputation as someone whose word can be trusted opens a lot of doors. It's an asset that has proved itself to be very valuable to me. If it weren't, I wouldn't bother avoiding lies.
You believe that the search for truth using science is noble, good, and necessary.
No, I don't. It doesn't even seem to me that looking for truth is even the point of science. Science tries to come up with models or theories that help us effectively predict experience. They don't have to be true to do this. If a scientific model does everything I need it to do to consistently, falsifiably, and most parsimoniously predict experience, that's all I expect from it. It doesn't need to be true to do this. Also, even if I did think science should be used to pursue truth, what does this have to do with Christianity? Did nobody like truth before Christianity was invented? Why does preferring truth over lies make someone a Christian?
But Nietzsche is going to ask you a question that's going to devastate that approach. Why? Why is truth better than a lie? Why is truth better than deception?
It's not always. And even if it were, what would that have to do with belief in God or lack thereof? Do you think the only legitimate reason to like truth is because there's a God to say that it's good?
You guys want to be skeptic and question everything. Question this. Why is truth better than falsity?
It isn't inherently. It seems like most of the time, believing ideas that consistently match experience will be more helpful at navigating the world. It tends to be useful. The more information you act on that isn't true, the harder it is to get through life, generally.
But I don't mean just for communicating with people. I mean for navigating the world at all. Why do you want to know true things?
I'm only interested in knowing true things insofar as they are useful for navigating the world.
Look at nature. Nature doesn't care about truth. Nature loves deception. The way prey camouflages itself, or the way a spider tries to hide its web to catch prey.
Or the way your brain will create illusions that portray reality inaccurately but make it easier to interact with your surroundings. Contrast illusions are a great example of this. Deceiving predators and prey is not the only advantage of falsehood. Sometimes it's even to your own advantage to be deceived.
Survival often depends on lying. If life is just biology and evolution, then truth is not a virtue, it's a strategy, and often it's a bad one.
Which is why I don't value truth in and of itself. But again, even if I did, what does this have to do with being an atheist? I doubt Christians invented the idea of valuing truth. I don't think any religion invented that. I see no reason to believe that it hasn't been something that people have tended to like for many thousands of years. How do any of the Abrahamic religions have any claim to it?
Nietzsche realized the moment you say, "I will not deceive, not even myself," you are no longer doing science.
I don't remember committing myself to doing science 24 hours a day.
You're doing morality. You're affirming that truth is transcendent.
When I choose not to deceive people, it's because I fear that doing so will backfire on me. What does that have to do with the transcendence of truth, whatever that even means? And even if truth is transcendent, what does that have to do with God?
Even divine. That truth is worth pursuing even if it's ugly, even if it gets you killed. That commitment is not a scientific commitment.
Nor is it a commitment I would ever make. This guy makes atheists sound like they hold up perfect honesty as some kind of categorical imperative. I've never met an atheist who said that they value truth so highly that they wouldn't lie even if a brown shirt asked them where Anne Frank was hiding. I doubt there are even many Christians who value truth that highly.
It's a religious commitment. This is what he meant when he says the scientific man is actually a Christian. If you believe that the universe is rational, ordered, and knowable,
I don't. Maybe it will turn out to be, but I don't think anyone is in any position to say that every aspect of the universe and how it works will definitely turn out to be fully comprehensible to human minds. There's nothing in the scientific method that is predicated on the idea that the universe is rational and knowable. Science can investigate whether certain aspects of it are rational or knowable, but it makes no assumptions about what the result of those investigations will be. Maybe we'll find a phenomenon that defies every model we try to apply to it. Maybe every hypothesis we come up with to try to explain it will end up being falsified by experiment, and we never find one that works. Science in no way assumes that there are no such epistemically impenetrable phenomena.
then you believe in God. You have just renamed him the laws of physics.
Isn't God supposed to be the creator of the universe? I don't believe that the laws of physics created the universe because they describe the universe. They would have to have some kind of existence independent of all of time and space in order to create all of time and space, as God is supposed to do, and I don't see how that makes any sense.
A law implies a lawgiver.
Oh, that moldy old chestnut. No, physical laws do not imply lawgivers. The laws of physics are descriptions, not prescriptions. As Bertrand Russell says, they are not behests. Matter and energy are not obeying anyone's commands. They just do what they do, and the laws of physics describe the things they, as best we can tell, do with perfect consistency. If you think that consistent behavior can only exist if some conscious entity imposes it, you're effectively assuming that the default state of reality is chaos, and order can only come from a conscious entity. There is absolutely no reason to assume this.
You are borrowing from the theistic worldview without acknowledging. If you were to stay in your lane and be consistent with your atheistic worldview, you would get none of these.
None of these what? Laws of physics? Why not? Why does a god need to exist in order for the behavior of matter and energy to be consistent?
A truly godless universe doesn't have laws. It has power. It has chaos.
How do you figure? Why can't anything behave with regularity without a god? If the speed of light suddenly changed, I would expect that some people would infer that to be a result of divine intervention. I wouldn't make that inference myself, but I would understand why some people would. It would make sense to infer that something caused that change. However, if the speed of light stays the same, why does that require divine intervention? Why would that need any kind of cause? Nothing happened, so what is there to explain?
Things are disordered. It's tyrannical. It's unfair. There is no justice in such a chaotic world.
Well, there's no justice in nature. Nature is a human invention. And why would a universe with no laws be tyrannical? You seem to think that the laws of physics are commands that matter and energy obey, rather than descriptions of what they naturally do all on their own. And if there's nothing telling everything what to do, that sounds to me like the opposite of tyranny.
But if you believe that the universe is rational, knowable, and ordered, then you are living in the shadows of a divine lawgiver.
I'm not convinced that it's rational or knowable, but please explain to me why the order that we see needs to be put into place by a god. Why do you assume that the default state of reality is chaos? It seems to me like it would be the opposite. If the behavior of matter and energy that's described by the laws of physics changed all the time, I would expect these changes to have causes. But why would things staying the same need a cause, much less a supernatural one? It seems to me that a universe with no consistent regularities would require some cause behind everything changing all the time. A universe in which there are things that stay the same seems to me like one that is left alone rather than divinely intervened upon.
Without admitting it. And that's either ignorance or intellectual dishonesty.
It's intellectually dishonest to say that without a god, the universe would be chaotic when you have no evidence or argument for this. You're just assuming this baselessly and asserting it baselessly.
But the problem goes deeper than science. It's in your morality. Nietzsche had a specific insult for the atheist of his day who tried to get rid of Christian theology yet keep Christian morals. He called it the English disease. You see this everywhere today. You see people who mock the Bible, but they're obsessed with equality and human rights.
Neither of those are in the Bible. If God believed that all humans have equal human rights, he wouldn't have ordered whole nations to be wiped out.
And compassion. Where do you think the idea of equality comes from?
Not the Bible. The Bible says you can own slaves, which is an unequal arrangement in and of itself. And it even has unequal rules about how slaves are to be treated that depend upon whether the slave is an Israelite or not.
It doesn't come from biology. Biology teaches hierarchy. Stronger wolves eat weaker wolves.
They do? I know they sometimes eat wolves from other packs, but that's not because they're weaker.
Intelligence gaps, strength gaps. Nature is an engine of inequality.
A lot of it is, but there's a lot of evidence that valuing equality is a natural tendency in some species. Even some non-human animals will get upset if they discover that they are not being treated equally. Look, for example, at the Brosnan study on capuchin monkeys.
The only reason that you believe that every human being has equal worth?
I don't actually believe that. Human zygotes are human beings, and I don't place nearly as much value on them as I do on any sentient organism. A full-grown weasel holds more value to me than any human zygote or embryo.
Is because of the Christian doctrine that all humans are equal before God.
I don't agree with that doctrine. But even if I did, the folks who advocate for political equality argue that humans should be seen as more than just equal before God, but also equal before the law, which many Christian societies have not agreed with.
That's not a biological claim. That is a theological one. As Nietzsche wrote in The Twilight of the Idols, when one gives up the Christian faith, one pulls the right to Christian morality out from under one's feet.
I don't subscribe to any Christian morals of which I'm aware, but the idea that rejecting the core claims of Christianity requires disposing of all Christian morals assumes that no Christian morals have any secular justifications at all. I don't assume that to be the case.
If you fight for social justice and universal human rights,
I don't. I don't believe in universal human rights, and I don't know what social justice is. I fight for the things my conscience motivates me to fight for. I don't believe that what my conscience tells me has any kind of transcendent truth.
Without God, you are a walking contradiction. You're demanding the fruits of the kingdom without acknowledging the king.
Even metaphorically, how is that a contradiction? The king didn't grow the fruit, and while I don't place equal value on every living cell that happens to have human DNA in it, I don't see why I would need to believe in a God in order to do so. Even if there is a God that says that all humans have equal value, why would that make such an evaluation objectively true? God is a subject, not an object, and there's no objective, non-circular reason why we ought to follow what God says.
You want the comfort of the Christian worldview without submitting to the Christian God. And Nietzsche called that cowardice. Y'all like Nietzsche, right? Well, hang tight, because we're not done. Look, this brings us to perhaps the most misunderstood moment in the history of philosophy, the madman running into the streets. So in The Gay Science, Nietzsche describes a madman running into a marketplace screaming, "I seek God." The people standing around him are all atheists, actually. Modern secular men, perhaps just like you, and they're laughing at him, mocking him. They say things like, "Is God lost? Did he go on a voyage? Where is your God?" They laugh at him because they think that the death of God, yes, this is the famous God is dead passage. They think that the death of God is just some trivial event. They think it means you can just sleep in on Sundays. But the madman smashes his lantern on the ground and asks, "Do you know what we have done? Who gave us the sponge to wipe away the entire horizon? What did we do when we enchained this earth from its sun?" Do you feel the weight of that metaphor?
Yeah, he reminds me of Brooks from Shawshank Redemption. He couldn't handle life outside of prison. To everyone who helps me out on Patreon, you're a big help. Thanks so much.